March Madness 360 on CBS Sports Network is sponsored by Nissan. Power forward.
4-1 seeds, 4 different paths to a championship. And Wally, Duke was your pick to win it all this year. So what is it about this Duke team that gives you so much confidence here in March?
Well, let's start with 3 projected top 15 picks in the NBA draft. These guys can really play. They might be young, but they can really get after you defensively. That's the big thing, too. Great length at every position, great size at every position. So even if they don't shoot the ball great, they can still lock you down defensively. You sprinkle in a couple veterans like Sion James and Tyrese Proctor, and you have an elite basketball team. The way they played without Cooper Flagg, also, Kiana, I thought that was very impressive. I was wondering to see who was going to step up and make plays. Con Knippel was great. So they have a lot of different ways to beat you.
Yeah, funny you should say that because I had to bring in my reinforcements as we're now brought in Mackenzie Brooks. And we obviously know the simulation gives Duke the easiest road to the title. But you and your team were able to run the simulation. And what would happen, say, they don't have Cooper Flagg throughout the tournament? So how do they look, say, there is no Cooper Flagg and also Malik Brown, who's also dealing with that dislocated shoulder?
There's definitely a significant impact. Now, they do still put up 1 seed numbers, certainly, but it's not the same 1 seed. They went from the absolute juggernaut with the easiest path down to just the worst of the 1 seed. Still a good 1 seed path, but of the 4, they go to the worst. 50% decrease in their chance to win that championship there from 24.5 down to 12.3. You're going to see a lot of the problems happen in the Final Four, where we had them as 3-point favorites against Houston. They now become a dog, essentially, in a pick-em situation with that team. So makes it a lot harder to get there. We have Houston going on to win that game, and then Houston beating Auburn. So we went from Duke being our overwhelming favorite 1 seed to win the national championship, all the way down to the Cougars falling in the right spot.
Say that again?
Now we agree.
Stay away from Cooper Flagg, all right? Stay away from him.
You know, it's interesting that your numbers say even without Flagg, they're number 1 seed.
Yes, basically. That's impressive.
Right. More than Tennessee?
They played really well when Flagg went out.
Without him.
I know, but they look pretty good.
ACC champ.
And ACC.
Exactly. What league is that again?
Oh,
what league is that again?
All right, well, Chris, let's come to you next because I want to take you to the H. The Cougars, 3 straight seasons as a 1 seed after starting the season 4-3, went on to win their next 26 of their next 27 games.
Say that
but
again?
I said it. You heard me. I didn't stutter. So what's impressed you?
Listen, this is a foregone conclusion. 14 games on the road, Wally. 14 games on the road. Did you hear me? The fact that we're talking, I don't care what, Mackenzie, I want to see those numbers. Ooh. You got to be kidding me. There's no team in the country that has won 14 games on the road that is in a major conference that Kansas was in and dominated it. Dominated defensively, offensively. They make threes. They got experience. They got Unc Sampson, the Scott Street Bullies. Wally know what I'm talking about. I want to see what those numbers say.
Listen, this is not about us not liking Houston. We just also like Clemson a lot. We like Tennessee. So that's where you start to see the problems come in. They're cruising through the Sweet 16. Then you go to the Elite 8, and we see Clemson. We give them a 4-point victory in that game there. And then against Michigan State as well, against Tennessee, around a 4-point win as well. So we have them winning these games, just not as convincingly, because we do like the metrics with Clemson and we do like Tennessee as well. So this is still a solid 1 seed path. Florida is the one who gets the shortest end of the stick. I just think Houston does not have as a desirable path as Duke.
We'll take whatever comes on. There's hurricanes down there. We handle all that down there.
All right.
Good.
So that's to Chris's liking.
Yeah,
we can take that. All right. Well, meanwhile, I think we've seen about a different version of the top-seeded Auburn team, Ice. What are you seeing out of them, especially we're thinking about what happened to close out this year, losing 3 of their last 4?
Yeah, I think what you're going to call on for them is their maturity this time of year, because losing 3 out of the last 4 was anti-mature in what this team has done all season. The team with the most quad 1 wins this season, an NCAA Player of the Year candidate, Janai Broome. They have fantastic guards who play 2 ways, great defenders, electric scorers. You have to be wary about them, right? Like, you have to see them on your bracket and say, oh my gosh, we have number 1 overall seed. But I feel like you kind of get a little confidence knowing they lost 3 out of their last 4. And no team has ever won a national championship losing 3 out of their last 4 in the regular season.
It's a really interesting situation because obviously when we're running these numbers, we're using the entire season collectively and all the data from the full season. Now, we do weigh the recent games more than the beginning of the season, but for this team specifically, in the way it's kind of been a downfall specifically in that last month there, you have to think, what if we just isolated those stats from the last month? This is certainly not the same team we saw in the beginning. So if you literally look at, this is their current forecast when we're taking into account all of their stats all season versus if we just isolated the stats we saw at the down the stretch part of the season, you're seeing a pretty massive decline in their chance to move on here. And instead of being a slight favorite to Florida in the Final Four, we would make them a dog there and we wouldn't have them going to the national championship. So a lot of what came down to is, are they so dependent on Broome for rebounding? If he's not putting up double-digit numbers in the rebounding category, who's it going to be? Because the next guy up is averaging like 5. So that seems to be what we can isolate as, hey, if he's having a bad rebounding game, this team is clearly struggling. So we're hoping not to see this version of the Auburn Tigers.
See, finally the numbers are saying something right. That's what
I've been saying.
Interesting, right? You get that?
Roof, they're dog. That's what I'm saying.
Mackenzie, as always, we appreciate the insight. And tonight at 12 a.m. Eastern, we bring you more tournament updates as the road to the Final Four continues on NCAA March Madness Bracket Breakdown here on CBS Sports Network. Back with us. So, you know, we're going to deep dive into the numbers, but not just any numbers. Yes. I'm talking about you guys' numbers. We've got each of your Elite 8 picks, and we've run them through the simulator to see how they would play out. So, Wally, you're up first. Take us through which 8 you got moving on.
Let's see what we got up here. Here we go. All right, here we got Auburn, Michigan State. Auburn moving on to the Final Four. Then we got St. John's beating Florida, taking down the first #1 seed. Duke beating Alabama, coasting in that one. And then we got H-Town moving on to the Final Four. And then once we get to the Final Four, we have, I think we're going to get there, aren't we?
I think we're just focusing on the Elite 8 for now.
Yeah, so this is essentially your Elite 8. And then we take it, we put it through the model. If we have to take the 8 teams that you told me to take, here's how it would play out from there. So if any of you are taking any version of Auburn and Duke in your Elite 8, I'll tell you now that Sportsline model is going to want to take them to the final here. But as far as why we like Auburn better than Michigan State, there's really nothing Michigan State does better as a basketball team outside of rebounding. But even when you break down your leading rebounders, you still have Broome, who's winning in that category here. So we do make this around a 4-point victory for Auburn in this 1-2 matchup. And Florida versus St. John's. I know America loves himself some St. John's basketball here, but it's like St. John's can't St. John's if they don't have a team that's going to turn the ball over, okay? And Florida is a very clean basketball team, also positive rebounding differential. So between not turning over the ball and between the rebounding differential, that's like 8 to 9 more possessions a game, and that's why we have them ultimately edging out St. John's. So that's why I can't take the Johnnies here or Michigan State.
Ooh, nicely done there. Okay, so I want you to take us next. Take us a little bit through your bracket. Were we still with Wally's here?
Everyone's going to be on a Duke Auburn.
Yeah, everybody on that one. All right, Ice. Let's head to your Elite 8. See what we make of your bracket.
Yeah, I didn't really shake things up a ton, to be honest. It's pretty chalk. It's 1 and 2. I don't think Auburn or Michigan State's going to have a tough time. I don't think Florida or St. John's will have a tough time. I do have Florida advancing, though, over the Johnnies. I just think they're going to outscore them. On the right side, I've got Duke and Bama. I've said this before, but Duke has the easiest route to the Final Four out of all the 1 seeds. There should be no reason they don't get there. And then Houston and Tennessee. I like Tennessee as a 2 seed. I have Houston, though, beating Tennessee, getting to the Final Four. And, yeah.
That's your national championship, huh?
That is my national championship. Florida, Houston.
I will say, if you go back here with your Elite 8, you have Tennessee in very similar bracket to Wally with the numbers he gave us there. Essentially the same.
Same Elite 8.
Outside of Tennessee here. Now, Tennessee, it should be a close game again, but the home road splits just don't really work out for them. Houston has become such a better 3-point shooting team in general this season, especially on the road here. And like I said earlier, we really like to weigh in the recent stats. Recent stats on the stretch of the season, you see Houston lights out from deep.
Also, Final Fours in San Antonio. Houston gets there to that thing. It's going to be a party, Seawall.
Oh, speaking of Seawall.
Now, let's get to a real bracket.
Uh-oh, here we go.
Somebody who actually took some challenges here.
Let's
get to a real bracket. Auburn, Michigan State. Tom Izzo gets to his 9th Final Four, possibly exercising the ghost of 2000. They haven't won a Big Ten, won an NCAA championship. He may make it happen. Right now, we got Texas Tech, Memphis. That's right, the Red Raiders, Grant McCasland.
Wow.
But I got Penny, Wally. There's an asterisk. Tyrese Hunter when we get the official word. But I'm picking Penny to get to Memphis, to get to San Francisco, and he will get to San Antonio. Then we go Duke, Alabama. Yeah, everybody's talking about Duke. I'm going Alabama. And the last one, I'm going Houston, of course.
Yeah.
Here we are again right there. Michigan State gets past Memphis. Houston gets past Alabama. We're going Houston, Michigan State. And Mackenzie, we're going H-Town.
This is just where I really can't get behind you with this Memphis team. You guys know how I feel about them. If we reseeded this, we make them like a double-digit seed here. Texas Tech, such a sneaky team. I think a good team to go far. I do like that with you, okay? We start to agree here. But again, Texas Tech, like a top 10 team in a lot of metrics that really do matter. So I would definitely have Texas Tech over Memphis here.
Interesting stuff right there, Mackenzie. We always appreciate it. We wrap things up next on March Madness 360 presented by Nissan as the road to the Final Four continues.